Who's the most famous person that you've ever met that you know of or you've met in real life?
Mark Wahlberg.
Hello everyone, welcome back to the Liam Talks Motorsport channel. I've got a very, very special guest today. This is Jess Hawkins. If you don't know already, she works for Aston Martin F1 as a driver ambassador and also drives in W Series for Racing X. And Jess, welcome to the channel, welcome to the show. How are you? I think you're in Monza, so I think you must be enjoying the atmosphere there. So hope you're well. Welcome to the show, and yeah, let's get started.
I am great, thank you, Liam. How are you?
I'm good. I'm very good.
Thank you for having me.
Yes. So let's begin. So if you don't know already, as I mentioned, Jess drives in W Series, but she's also driven in minis and also in the British Touring Car Championship. But I wanted to start with what got you into motorsport? What was the main, who was your icon growing up, and what was the main thing that sparked your interest in motorsport?
So I wasn't really I didn't even know what motorsport was when I first started. So I was a really sporty child, always into kind of every sport, and I was actually playing golf with my dad one day, and there was a kart track in the distance, and I kind of just was interested in what it was and asked him to take me over there to have a look and stuff. And luckily for him at the time, I was way too small, and there was a height restriction and I was just too small. Wouldn't have reached the pedals or the steering wheel probably. So then maybe 6 months later, I kept begging him to take me back, and I hadn't grown much, but strangely enough, the height restriction had come down because they must have got some smaller karts in. And yeah, that was that. And ever since that day, I fell in love with the sport, and I'm still in love with it now.
Yeah, that's very interesting, because there's so many different stories that I've heard about how people got into motorsport. That's probably one of the most interesting ones I've heard, that you're actually not that interested in motorsport to begin with, and you're very sporty. But I find it very interesting that you found your interest in motorsport just through seeing a karting track in the distance.
Yeah, strange. Just stumbled across it.
Yeah. So if you were to name someone who you would consider to be the main figure for you in your beginning in motorsport, who would it be, in terms of your inspiration?
Who was it at the prime? Was, I think, Alonso days. He was really big. I remember, I don't know what year it was, but the first ever Formula One race that sticks in my mind was Monaco. I don't know the year. And I remember he was really quite dominant at the time. And Seb as well. Seb was there when I was growing up, and he's obviously now a colleague of mine, which is crazy to think. But he's an incredible person, and certainly someone that I looked up to at a younger age.
Yeah, same with me. I mean, I've met Seb, and I'm also a huge Seb fan. Not to be biased, of course. And yeah, he's a lovely guy. So you started racing, and what was the aim for you at that time for your career? What did you want to race professionally, or was there another thing that was in the picture? Or
I still didn't know. I still didn't know that it was a thing, you know. And to my knowledge at the time, my parents didn't know. What I didn't know at the time is my dad had actually done a couple of years racing himself when he was in his, I don't know how old he was, maybe mid-20s, but he had to stop after only a couple of years just because it was such an expensive sport and he wasn't able to continue the way that he wanted to. So, and my dad was reluctant at me starting, and I didn't know it at the time, but I think that he didn't want me to go through the same disappointment that he went through of having to stop. But I don't think either of us ever thought that I would still be here 18, 19 years later, having made a career from it. And so, yeah, that's a strange path I've had.
Yeah, and it's so strange to think that you didn't know what motorsport was, and yet here you are, as you said, a couple of decades later, and you are not only racing on, well, you've raced in British touring cars, but you've also raced on the Formula One calendar and have obviously met some of your racing icons. And who would you say is the best racing driver that you've ever met? Like, who's the best racing driver you've ever met and had a chat to, and that you know, out of all the drivers that you've met?
Oh God, it has to be Seb, really, doesn't it? It has to be Seb.
Yeah,
I'm just trying to who have I met? It has to be Seb.
yeah.
I don't think I've met another 4-time world champion.
I asked Alice Powell the same question because I met her at Knock Hill, and I think she said Lewis Hamilton. And the funny thing is, she said she never met Sebastian Vettel. So, and I replied to her saying, "Well, I've got one up on you because I've met Sebastian Vettel."
I've never met Lewis.
Oh, there you go. That's something that you two don't have in common. And what was it? What was it like racing in minis and then eventually British touring cars? What was when you first raced in British touring cars? How did you feel? Were you nervous, or did you have like a huge buzz that you were like, "I can do this. I can race in British touring cars professionally"?
Yeah, so obviously my first year in saloon cars, or my first full season in racing, was in the mini championship. And then it had been a good few years before I had the opportunity to jump in anything front wheel drive again. So the touring car thing kind of came out of the blue, but it was welcomed because that is where that touring cars is something that is like closely to my heart. Since I started, really, I've always wanted to race in British touring cars. So when the opportunity arose, I took it. So whilst I was extremely excited, I kind of knew that I may not get this opportunity again. And I just wanted to go into the weekend and enjoy it and kind of show what I can do. And but then another opportunity came a year later. So I did the same thing, and we were actually really quite quick at points as well. So I still have unfinished business in the BTCC.
And of course, you even raced this year in the BTCC. And of course, at this time, a certain series was being formed by a certain Scotsman and Catherine Von Muir. And of course, you got picked as a driver. Of course, I've seen the documentary, and I know that your friend, my friend, our mutual friend Matt Bishop was involved in it, and that's how you two first met. I think you two have a pretty good working relationship, but what was it like first driving in W Series, and what was it like knowing that you were picked for arguably the biggest female series in the world, which basically shows that you're one of the best female racing drivers in the world, because there's drivers like Jamie Chadwick and of course Beitske Visser and Alice, who are all racing in W Series, and they're all have incredible amounts of talent, and it must have been crazy for you when you first raced in W Series. So what was that feeling like? Was it crazy, or was it similar to touring cars?
I'd actually stopped racing a good few years before W Series came about. So I was a little bit not dubious to enter, but I wasn't 100% sure at the time when I first heard about it. But it wasn't until I'd learned more about the championship and what it stands for that I realized that I would have had to have been really silly to not apply for it. And I wasn't sure of my chances because I hadn't been racing in so long, and I wasn't really prepared for it as such. But luckily I did well at the auditions, and I managed to steady as I imagined. But we had, and having a stronger finish to the season as I imagined, and I tried to carry that confidence forwards into the last few rounds.
Yeah, and you weren't, of course, the only driver who hadn't raced in years, because of course Alice Powell and Emma Kamalainen, they both hadn't raced in years because Emma had to raise her family, of course, and Alice didn't have the finances to keep racing. So you weren't the only driver that came unprepared, and I think that might did that help your confidence a little bit, knowing that you weren't the only driver?
Not really, because I mean, in some breath, yes, it's good that they weren't fresh, but they also they've all had, including Emma as well and Alice, have all had years in kind of GP2 and GP3, DTM as well under their belt. So yes, they were coming back, but they had far more experience than me to begin with. Now, whilst I knew that I wasn't going to probably be able to take it to them early on, certainly now I'm starting to get there, which is great, which is as I kind of imagine the season to pan out. And that's exactly how it's gone, to be honest. Alice is obviously my teammate. Great relationship with Alice, love Alice to bits. And I'm rooting for her in the championship this year.
That is literally what I was about to ask. I was about to ask, who do you think is going to win W Series, and who do you think is going to win this year?
I don't know who is going to win, but obviously Alice is my teammate, and I would like to take the team championship as well. So it's in my best interest that Alice does well. So
yeah. And I'm meant to be unbiased, but I do kind of want Alice to win because I've met her in real life, and I've met Abby in real life as well. And I was saying to my dad this morning, this is going to be the third W Series driver that I've met, and saying that out loud was absolutely crazy, because if I told myself last year that I'd be meeting W Series drivers, it'd be absolutely mad. Yeah, who do you think will win the Formula One this year? It's a tough question to ask, but out of Verstappen and Hamilton, who do you think would win the championship?
I'm going to go with Max. I think it's his time. I feel like it's his time to win championship.
I agree. I think Verstappen, I think it's going to be very close, but I think Verstappen's going to win the championship. Of course, you're at Monza. Who do you think will win today then? I think McLaren could cause an upset. Of course, yeah. This will be going out after Monza, but just wanted to hear your thoughts on the Italian Grand Prix, and also.
I mean, obviously, I'm going to be rooting for our lads, Seb and Lance. So stranger things have happened. We know that last year at Monza there was a curveball thrown, and there's been a few strange races this year, so I'm rooting for our boys. But if we assume that nothing crazy is going to happen, a Verstappen win, a safety car at some point. I don't know. Who knows? I'm not very good at predictions.
Yeah. Well, it is Monza. Crazy things have happened, of course.
If you've watched the F2 races,
yeah,
they're absolute carnage. So if it's anything like that, then we are in for an exciting race.
Yeah, I mean, I was watching it before I came onto this meeting, and I just quickly went onto my Sky Go window, and Piastri won the race. Of course, the Monza races in F2 have been absolutely crazy, and F2 in itself is just a crazy thing. So when you see that an F1 race is actually better than an F2 race, you must presume it's a shock race, and that's what happened last year, of course, when Lance started third place and Gasly ended up in the race. Were you watching that race? What's probably the maddest F1 race you've ever watched, and why? And what's the best race you've ever watched?
Hungary was quite a thing, I think. Hungary this year was quite dramatic. When Lewis came to take the start, and he was the only one on the starting grid, that's probably a picture that we'll never, ever see again. So that was unusual. And also, for me, this year, the best race has probably been Baku. It was my first weekend with the team, and obviously Seb got his podium, which was unexpected. And I think everybody here deserved it, and everybody was extremely happy and got something back for all their hard work. So that one for me was pretty special.
And I think the craziest race I've watched live is either Monza this year, or probably a Formula 2 or a Formula 3 race. I mean, I was at the British Grand Prix in person, and I have to say that was absolutely crazy. I mean, I was watching you and the rest of the W Series drivers racing, and that was also pretty cool as well. But I have to say the craziest race I've seen in racing is probably the 2020 Italian Grand Prix, just because how absolutely bonkers it was. And I remember that I was on a YouTube break at the time, and I had to make a video on it because it's such a crazy race. Out of all of the drivers that you've met, who's the driver that you're most pally with? I think I know what the answer is going to be, but I'm going to ask it anyway, just because I find it interesting who all the drivers are pally with.
On the F1 grid or on the W Series grid?
Just in general, like who's the racing driver that you're most friendliest with, or you know best?
I'm gonna say Abby Eaton.
Oh,
yeah, that has to be the answer.
Yeah. And out of all the racing drivers that you've raced with, who is the most talented? That's an interesting question, I think.
George Russell.
Pardon?
George Russell.
George Russell. That's interesting. I think if I recall, you raced against Lando Norris in the British F4 quite a few years ago.
Was Norris there when I was racing? I don't think Norris was in it when I was racing.
I must have.
Maybe he was. I don't think he was.
Well, George Russell is a driver that's certainly talented, of course. Just a little bit talented.
He's very good.
Yeah, he is very, very good. But now I'm gonna put you on your toes a little bit, because I think I'm gonna do a very, very quick quiz. 5 questions.
Oh God.
Yeah.
Oh no.
The first question I think you might get, because of course you're a stunt driver for the Bond movies. But the first question is, when was the first James Bond film released?
The first one ever?
Yeah, there's 3 options.
Oh, okay.
Or 1966.
Say that again.
1962, 1964, or 1966.
1962.
Correct, Dr. No.
Thank you.
Yeah, now this is one that I don't even think Matt would know, but I'll ask it anyway, just because it's a 50-50 question. True or false, Aston Martin won Le Mans before Lawrence Stroll was born?
Say that again.
Aston Martin won Le Mans before Lawrence Stroll was born. True or false?
Do we know when Lawrence Stroll was born?
Right, he was born in 1959. That's the clue that you're gonna get. Oh, I think that's cheating. That's cheating.
But this is Will here. He is masked, just waiting for this interview. I don't know.
True or false? Just say one of them at random.
One before. Heads or tails? Yeah, true.
Correct. 1 month before he was born, they won Le Mans in 1959 with.
Oh, okay.
And Roy Salvadori. So I think that was a fair question to ask. Third question: when did Jordan make their debut in F1? You're not allowed to ask anyone for help.
Is that do I get 3 options?
Yeah, 1989, 1990, or 1991.
Right, go again. 1989.
1990 or 1991.
1990.
Oh, 1991.
Oh my God, I was going to say number 1. I was going to say 1991.
That was so close. And now a question that should be quite easy for you. Who won the Formula One World Championship the year you were born? Now, did you watch the Grill the Grid special with Sebastian Vettel? Right, you've got 3 options again. A, Damon Hill, B, Michael Schumacher, or C, Nigel Mansell.
Say that again.
So 3 options are Damon Hill, Michael Schumacher, and Nigel Mansell.
Schumacher.
Correct, 1995.
Nice.
That was a question that just came into my head. nowhere.
Come on, more questions, more questions.
And then one final question. How many followers as of today do you have on Twitter? Is it A, 17,500, B, 17,700, or C, 17,900?
What? 17.7.
Correct. 4 out of 5. I think that's I'll give you that. That's really impressive. And speaking of your Twitter followers, I think this is a bit.
I don't really use Twitter. I'm more of an Instagram kind of girl.
Yeah, I think I saw someone that did a poll on social media on YouTube, and they said I think most people use Instagram more than Twitter, which I find bonkers. I prefer Twitter than
Really?
Instagram. Yeah, I've always preferred Twitter to Instagram. I don't know why, but I just like using Twitter more. First thing when I get up in the morning, check Twitter notifications. That's something that everyone does. I think everyone's guilty of it. Who is because of course you work as a stunt driver? Who's the most famous person? Have you ever met anyone from the body who's really famous or you've met in real life?
Mark Wahlberg.
Wow, that is very, 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 very impressive. A beanie hat so much.
Do you know what? This is okay. True story behind the beanie hat is. So when I used to, and I still sometimes do, mechanic and coach kind of like young drivers in karting. If it was windy, my hair just used to blow everywhere, and I could never see anything. I couldn't see putting the wheels on or anything like that. So I just put a hat on to stop my hair dampening my view. And then basically I ended up never taking it off because I just felt really comfortable in it. And now I feel mildly uncomfortable without it.
I posted a hint on social media as to I'm going to be interviewing you today. And I literally just cropped a W Series photo of you with you wearing your beanie hat. And I just cropped it so it's just you, just top of the beanie hat. And most people figured it was you. With your beanie
people
hat.
Genuinely, people, and including friends, don't recognize me without my bubble hat.
Wow. Well, thank you so much for coming on to chat about your career in W Series and just some general questions. I'm sure everyone will absolutely love this interview. I certainly have, and I hope you have. But yeah, thank you for joining me, Jess Hawkins.
No worries. Thanks for having me, Liam.
Good weekend. Hope Aston Martin do as well. Hope they have a good race today. And yeah, thank you very much for everyone for watching. And also thank you to Jess for joining me on this very, very special video.
Thank you for having me, Liam.
Thank you.